Hello! Welcome back. My name is Daniel Gormali. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a game, another blast from the past game. And this is when I was playing against a guy called Paul Byway, who was representing Barbican. I believe Paul was quite a, I don't know if he's still around, but he was quite a familiar figure on the chess circuit. And I'm not sure if this is the only time I played him actually, but I remember playing him at the 4NCL in one of the early days. So the 4NCL was only really created in the 1990s. And obviously I was kind of around pretty much from the beginning of the 4NCL. I didn't play Lloyd's Bank when I was younger. And I only really got into chess. So a lot of people around about my age, they kind of played in Lloyd's Bank. You know, Lloyd's Bank was like early 90s. I think it ended about 94, mid-90s, 94, 95. That was a famous tournament in London. But I did play 4NCL, and I was playing against Paul Byway. I believe this game took place in somewhere in Wales. It was the only time. So if anyone's got any memory of playing that 4NCL in Wales, please let me know. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, so let's just kick off and show you the game. It's quite an interesting game, and it involves a very dubious decision that I made at one point, which kind of made the game stand out in my head. So my opponent's playing a very positional, strategical way, and this is kind of chess that I always struggled with over the years. When my opponents would play very kind of strategical. So let's have a look and see how I played. Yeah, so I go for a very aggressive choice, which is to open the centre. Yeah, obviously you can play in other ways, but my opponent played d3, and he soon surprised me because I went rook d8 and he went bishop e3. I probably knew the theory vaguely up to this point. I was like, what the hell is bishop e3? So I took the pawn, then rook b1. I took another pawn. Wow, that's brave. I don't actually remember doing that. I don't remember. I kind of remember what happened later, but I don't remember, you know, grabbing a second pawn. So, for example, why didn't I just play cautiously and come back here? I guess White's idea is to play some kind of knight d4 move, right? I took the pawn. He did go knight d4, actually. Yeah, so I think nowadays I'd probably play a bit more cautiously. I probably wouldn't have... it's possible now that I'm already kind of committed a little bit. I'm pot committed. Because I remember, I do remember... I remember thinking this is actually a decision much later in the game, but it seems to have happened out of the opening. It's funny how you have this memory where I decided to give up my queen. So if I play a move like queen d7... I guess that the issue is he's doing something like this, right? And I don't have a good reply. But maybe I could have gone queen d6 instead. No, but queen d6, knight b5. Queen h5 was another choice I probably should have spent more time on. A more sensible decision. And if Paul takes this pawn, now he can take this, but now I have moves like bishop g4. So it's not so clear that he's doing well, actually. I'm not sure. Anyway, I decided to go bonkers here, which looks kind of natural in a way, but sure. I mean, I remember his reaction when I took this. It was like complete shock, giving up my queen. And I soon came to regret this decision. He played quite strongly, actually. So again, why am I not keeping more pieces on the board? Well, I suppose if I go here, he can just take the pawn, right? Maybe. Well, I suppose there's a bishop g3. It doesn't look right. But I just also I feel like I should keep the dark square bishop here. I mean, bishop c5 actually looks more natural, but maybe there were issues with that. Maybe moves like rook c1 was possible. I didn't like. Because you can't go back to b6 because of rook b6. And yeah, if you go back to d6, there is this issue with the pawn hanging. So I went here. But this doesn't look anywhere near enough compensation for the queen. I'm very surprised actually that I drew this game. But we end up in a fascinating situation later in the game, where he really should have won the game. Even here, there's probably very strong moves. Well, what he did seemed reasonable. So, clearly I don't really know what I'm doing here, and I went... And maybe he could have even considered just rook c7 was an option. Looks like a good option, right? I mean, it looks completely winning for white at this point in the game. Also not bad what he did, but I think... I don't think he needs to play moves like h3. Probably is something simpler, right? But I mean, it's still completely winning effectively because there's so many pieces on the board that it's nowhere near a blockade. He probably should just go like e4 and then d4, right? Well, probably move the rook first would be sensible. Because there is a slight worry that maybe the rook could get lost, although I don't really think so. Because g5 is going to be hard to engineer anyway, so you could even consider that immediately. That looks like a natural move. Again, you could maybe consider going queen a2, winning material that way, but will that be sufficient to win? I don't think he needs to do that, actually. I think what he did was correct. Must be winning for white's position again. I keep repeating it. Rook c3 was also an option. Wow, so I felt like obliged to give up the... incredible that I drew this game, actually. Incredible resilience. I did have a lot of resilience at this point in my career. I was probably a more resilient player than I am now. Because I didn't have the scar tissue. Now I get a lost position, I'm just, resign. I'm so used to it. Resign. There you go, resign. But at the time I probably, was forcing myself to, work hard. Oh, so we got, this is kind of like getting towards this kind of blockade position. I was kind of surprised he allowed this at all, because I thought, during the game, I thought this is not easy for him to win, right? I remember thinking I was surprised that he allowed this. So we carried on. But he did manage to slowly manoeuvre himself, I believe, into a winning position. Alan Hanrick was giving me a lift, actually. And I remember he had to, because we went on for so long, he had to wait around, I think. Normally I'd wait around for Alan. And I think he mentioned to me later that he went up to Danny King, who was watching the game. I think Danny King might have been an Invicta Knights player as well. And he said, is it winning for white, this endgame? And Danny King was like, I have no idea. But it does look winning, right? I mean, the only thing is if you go here, then I go bishop f3, and the queen is pinned. But if you could somehow engineer d5, d6, that must be completely winning. So he tries coming around this way. And I remember concentrating really hard here, and I didn't want to push the b pawn as well, because then I lose the stability of the bishop on c4. So he comes in and potentially could maybe come into h6 as well. That was another plan. Maybe king h6, put the queen on h8 and put knight g4. But then knight g4 actually, because if you go king h7, have knight f6, and with the queen on h8. So it's quite hard to engineer this queen to g7 check, which would make some progress. So he cleverly manoeuvred round. Now I've got to defend that pawn. So he won this pawn, right? So he feels like he must be winning now. How's he not won this? I think what it's taught me, actually, this game, and it gave me confidence the rest of my chess career, was firstly I was very resilient, in bad positions, and I could defend very well, which I think you need to be a good player. You need to have that toughness. And secondly, maybe even good players, like Paul Byway was nearly 2300. They're not necessarily as good technically as you think they are. He should really have put me away. But I was defending. Yeah, and I remember at some point I felt like there's definitely a win. Maybe there was even a g4 move. That didn't quite work. I remember during the game seeing a clear win for him. But he didn't carry through. It's maybe around about this point in the game. Yeah. So no, it's just not easy for white to break down a defence. It's incredible. I even actually had a game the other day where I had queen. It was embarrassing. I had queen against knight, queen and king against knight and king. But it was like a blitz game. But I did have quite a lot of time when we went into it, but I just couldn't win. I think the guy was an engine as well because he was defending like most humans. You win, like they'd lose the knight, but his defense was just ridiculous. And it was a draw in the end because eventually I ran out of time. I had to give out the queen for the knight to avoid losing. I thought, well, they're probably. I'm not sure actually. You can't lose actually if you've got a queen, can you? Because they wouldn't be able to give checkmate with king and knight against queen and knight, queen and king. Like you can't self checkmate surely because the queen would always be close enough to take the knight. I would assume. Anyway, so it carried on. And eventually the game was drawn. So let's just look at that game on the computer. By the way, if it gets cut off at this point, my video keeps getting cut off. I'll do like a separate video where I analyse it with the computer. How accurate was that game? Is there a way of checking the engine analysis? Request a computer analysis. Might take a while. While we're waiting for it, can we kick on? Oh, so this is all some kind of theory. Yeah, Queen h5, which I was alluding to, is a more sensible move. But I took, which is bonkers, obviously. Stupid. Oh, bishop b4 is a better try, but I think now I'm definitely lost. You know, this must be losing. And I'm sure later on he had much easier wins than what he did. Oh yeah, by this point I am totally busted. He could maybe take and go queen g5, and then he wins the pawn, right? But I think the intriguing thing is the queen against knight and bishop ending. That was the thing that stuck in my mind about this game. You know, at this point, obviously, yeah, that's what I said earlier. Maybe he could give up the exchange and then win the a7 pawn was another way to try and win. But now, actually not so easy. The computer thinks actually rook e8 is quite a good defense. Because then you win the h3 pawn, apparently. Because then you're threatening to push the pawn. So he would have, if he loses the h3 pawn, then actually not really winning. So when I say I was a great defender, actually I've bunged up like probably a drawing position. And but I think the intriguing thing is this ending, which he played fairly well for a lot of it. Could have gone b4 actually. Was he ever winning this ending? I thought he was winning. During the game I felt like he'd broken my defence. But what eventually happened was he ran out of moves. Like I claimed it under the 50 move rule, I think. Right, so he's great. He has played it fairly well actually, and the computer does think it's winning. By the way, did it give a computer analysis? Yeah, it said I played with 90. It was not bad actually for an inexperienced player to play with 91% accuracy. And he also played a reasonable game, so actually maybe it was a better game than I gave it credit for. It was a tough struggle, and I think he was winning around about this point, but it wasn't easy to work out the win. And it was kind of subtle, and he failed. Queen c7 was better, and bring the queen. So if you go here, the subtle win is something like this. Now I can't. Can I just move the bishop? Then queen f2, and then come back again. Then d5, and then take. Then queen c5, and then he will smash. Yeah, this is one of the ideas. Actually, I vaguely remember thinking about that in the game. That the whole thing is getting through to e7 somehow. Maybe I even saw a line like this. Maybe not this line in particular, but some lines like that. I probably saw it in the game. But I think he kind of woofed around and didn't really know how to break my defence. And e6 was improving my chances as well, interestingly enough. Because then I just leave the knight on d5 and he can never break through to e7. So really in these kind of endings, it's all about whether you can break the blockade. And he should have been able to break the e7 blockade. But he kind of woofed around, and queen f4, and then, and then the game was a draw. So that was a good result, really, given the game when he was pressing for most of the game, and, you know, I was very kind of pleased with myself to make a draw, really, in that game. And so it's an interesting endgame. Please leave your notes below. Did you ever play a tournament in Wales, in any tournament? Because I noticed actually there's a Wales YouTube channel run by Jonathan Blackburn. Shout out to them. Maybe I'll leave a link in the comments below. And they do like a regular news roundup, and they mention my British Rapid play. Have you ever played? Did you play that 4NCL weekend in Wales? And did you ever have an ending like that where you were struggling with a blockade? Maybe send me the game. I'll put my email in the link below as well. Send me the game, and I will possibly link it into a future video, like a blockade where you thought that you defended really well with a material disadvantage, and you blockaded your opponent. Because I've always been fascinated by blockades ever since that game. My opponent could have broken a blockade, but he wasn't able to do it in a practical game. And it surprised me, because I thought this guy's really strong with 2300 strength. He couldn't break, and I remember feeling surprised in the game that he couldn't win from that position. But I did defend it fairly well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe.